Hello my fellow family foodie friends, I am so excited to share this week's What's for Dinners with you, and that includes homemade pasta. Beef and broccoli was one of our dinners this week, and I make rice often. If you guys have seen my other What's for Dinners, you've probably seen that. I always make it in my Instant Pot. It is so easy. I have 2 cups of water, 2 cups of Jasmine rice. I'm just kind of leveling out the rice within the water. I seal my lid on my Instant Pot and I hit the rice button, and then I walk away and I forget about it. And my 8-year-old is, I realized, quite helpful this week. As I was putting all these dinners together, she helped me with almost every single dinner, and it was a true joy. The more my kids are in the kitchen, the more help they actually are. And here I am just starting to make a sauce. I got this recipe right from damndelicious.net. I absolutely love her recipes. I will link below so you can get the exact measurements, but this has lots of different yummy ingredients in it. It has honey and garlic and water and rice vinegar and soy sauce and chicken cube bouillon. There is just so much going on in here. So I'm going to link it all below. You'll get the exact ingredients, but I am basically making a sauce. Elsie is grating the fresh ginger for me. We are working together and it all comes together deliciously. After the broccoli was cut and the sauce was made, I went ahead and started cutting my steak. This is a thin steak that I got from Walmart. The recipe calls for flank steak, but I couldn't find something called exactly that. And I don't know much about meat, but this worked well. And it was pre-packaged and available on my Walmart grocery pickup, so I went with it and it worked really good. I love using thin beef because I don't have to worry much. We don't like raw beef, and we really like to have all of our beef cooked well done. I know that's a sin in the steak world, but that's how we eat it in our house. In a nice hot pan, I add oil and start cooking my beef. I don't have any of my sauce in there yet, but once I get a nice little color on the beef, I do go ahead and add that sauce that you saw me making into it, and there is some cornstarch that helps it to thicken up a little bit. And I'm also steaming my broccoli. I have some broccoli on the side because one of my daughters doesn't eat meat and she won't eat broccoli that was cooked in meat. The rest of the broccoli went into the entire dish and it cooked really well together. I love this dinner, and I think if you made it at your house, you would too. It's really an all-in-one type meal, and it was wonderful leftovers too. Well, I promise you I'm not a one-trick pony, but I'm making rice again. This time I made cilantro lime rice. I did 2 cups of rice, 2 cups of water, just like before, but I added in a 1/4 cup of lime juice. I added in just a bunch of dried cilantro and garlic salt. I didn't measure either of those, but if I had to guess, I'd say probably about a teaspoon of garlic salt and a tablespoon of dried cilantro. Really, I wouldn't do too much because you can always season it more at the end if you don't like it. And then once again, I hit the rice button and my Instant Pot gives me wonderful rice in the end. Elsie is here helping me. She is chopping fresh cilantro. And if you guys have seen my other videos, you know that I make my taco meat in bulk. I will link that video below in my recipes, but I make taco meat and I freeze it in dinner-sized portions. So I just have that going on the stove. The pre-made taco meat makes dinners like this super easy, which is one of the reasons why I make taco meals about once a week. And now I'm just seasoning a can of black beans with some cumin and garlic powder. Now the best part is assembling your tostada exactly how you want it. I buy these tostada shells from Aldi, and I can generally get 2 meals for a family of 5 out of a single bag, and it's less than $2 for a bag of the shells. I go ahead and make the tostadas exactly how I want. Sometimes we have cheese sauce or onions or whatever I have, and it's good to go. This is truly a family favorite in our house. So this week, we did not actually have Thanksgiving dinner on Thanksgiving. We were home, just the 5 of us, and I planned to make a homemade ravioli, so I wanted to have some Rhodes rolls to go with it. We actually use a Pioneer Woman recipe to doctor these up a little bit, but I will link that below. You basically set these out. It was 7:30 in the morning when I set these out. I still have my jammies on, and I covered them. I actually put them in a really warm spot in our house. It's my corner Lazy Susan cupboard, and they sat in rows all day. You'll see how puffy they are later. And then around 11 in the morning, Elsie and I got started on making raviolis. This is homemade pasta. I use my Kitchen Aid mixer. I absolutely love doing this. Again, I will type out the recipe, but it's a lot of fun to watch. It'll be linked below. It's super simple. And I'm not showing you extra virgin olive oil here, but I did end up adding that because my dough recipe was dry. You'll see I finish it and then I add it back into the bowl and add some extra virgin olive oil. I went from one recipe to another because my house is pretty cold and there's no humidity in the air to add some moisture, so it was just crumbly and dry. So if your noodles aren't cooperating, you just have to get used to playing with them a little bit. You'll see here it's a pretty simple process. I'm just adding all of the ingredients, again, that will be measured and listed below, into my mixing bowl. I have flour, egg, salt, water. Eventually I'll add EVOO. After a few minutes of using the mixer blade, you're going to add in your dough hook and you'll mix it all together, and then you end up kneading it. This is the process where I decided I needed to add the extra virgin olive oil into it to make it stick better. Also, sage is not called for in the ingredient list for these noodles, but I went ahead and added fresh sage because I wanted to have a flavored noodle. I have done this with many seasonings over the years and it turns out really well. So you could add in spinach or cilantro or whatever sounds fun to you. You can make them kind of spicy. Lots of different ways you can go with it, but it doesn't take a lot to season the noodles, and it just adds a little bit of a background flavor to play with whatever dish you're actually making. So once I actually had a lump of dough that was pliable and that I could mix together without it crumbling and falling apart, Elsie gave kneading the first whirl, and then I went and gave it a whirl. If I was making this for anyone but our family, I probably wouldn't have my 8-year-old help knead, but she was with me and very helpful. And here I'm getting cranberry and stuffing ready to stuff my raviolis. You can see there's my rolls still rising. This pasta roller makes sheets of pasta, and then I will switch it out later for a pasta cutter because I have one that makes linguine and one that makes spaghetti. They actually have a ravioli one. I'm not special enough to have that, but oh well. Here I have cranberry sauce and stovetop stuffing. I could have gone really homemade and made my own cranberry sauce and my own stuffing, but you can see I didn't, and I have no regrets. This is where things really start to get fun. You add in your dough and you're going to think, how in the world is this going to turn into pasta? You can see it is falling apart and it is looking like things aren't going to go well. But I promise you, just keep going. I have it on a level 2, which is one of the thicker settings. It helps your dough to come through. And then as it thins out and it starts to come together, you can see I'm actually getting sheets of pasta. I promise you, stick with it. It'll keep happening to you like this as well. Then you can lower the setting to like a 5. The higher the number, the thinner your pasta, and 5 or 4 is what was recommended to make raviolis. So here is Elsie making sheets, both of my girls, really thought this was fun, and I have to agree with them. It is my favorite part of making pasta, watching your clump of dough turn into a wonderful sheet of pasta. We took that single lump at the beginning and made it into 8 sheets of pasta. There are lots of fancy tools that make making pasta and ravioli easier, none of which I have for ravioli, so I use a cookie cutter, and I did 2 different shapes. One of them was for cranberry stuffing and cheese, which I had in my raviolis, and one was just for stuffing because my husband thought cranberry sounded disgusting in pasta. So I did his in squares. I used that. Actually, I just cut those by hand. And then my kids didn't want ravioli, so we made plain linguine for them. So all from the same pasta. It worked really well. And we made all of our pasta before we went to a movie and just let it dry. I put the raviolis in the fridge and the pasta hung on a Christmas ribbon, as you just saw. And here's my husband's chicken. I will link below to his recipe. I'm not going to spend much time on it because it did not go with our ravioli at all. He and I both wanted to make something. He found a chicken that sounded good to him, and I wanted to make ravioli. And we both just went our own ways and made our own thing. And it was fine, and his chicken was delicious, but I would definitely not recommend making them together. His had like an Indian flair. It had turmeric in it and cilantro and mint. And while it was really delicious, it definitely didn't go with the stuffing and sage pasta that I made. But you know what? We ate dinner, we were full, and we all really enjoyed the meal. But I will link below to his chicken recipe. You can see he's marinating it. He's getting that ready before we went to the movies as well. And if you are guessing, yes, we went and saw Frozen 2. My kids loved it. I thought it was cute. I'm always game for going to the movies. So after the movies, we came home, and this is what my rolls look like after sitting in the really warm Lazy Susan. Unfortunately, from coming out into my cold kitchen, they did fall a little bit before cooking. You can see they're kind of deflating and a little sad. I should have kept them in the warmth like until the last minute, but that's a lesson learned, going from one warm temperature to the cool. But we are adding pink Himalayan sea salt, butter, and rosemary to the top. They're our family favorites. And I'm now mincing garlic because I'm making a very, very simple brown butter garlic sauce to go on top of the ravioli. Since I have a lot of flavors going on inside the ravioli, I needed something simple yet delicious to cover it, and this totally fit the bill. I will link to a brown butter garlic recipe below, the one that I use, but it just had butter and garlic. I made a test ravioli just to make sure that cooking for 5 minutes in boiling water was enough, and it was perfect, so I went ahead and made all of my noodles for 5 minutes. Since these aren't dry for months on end sitting in a box, and they were pretty fresh pasta even though they dried out a little bit, it only took about 5 minutes to cook not only the linguine but also the ravioli. So I had 2 pots of boiling water ready when we were ready to cook the pasta, when the chicken was almost done. I had my brown butter sauce already, the rolls were done, and these are the last things that I made. You can see my husband there is just finishing his chicken from the stove top into the oven, and everything is coming together. For my kids who didn't want the ravioli, I just added butter to these noodles. I felt so proud because these noodles were beautiful, and my ravioli was beautiful. I added the butter sauce right on top of that, and we had the chicken rolls and our homemade noodles on Thanksgiving, and it was super filling, and I was super proud. Once again, all 3 of these recipes are linked below. As you are probably well aware, I cook my bacon in the oven on sheets, and it comes out this perfect. I absolutely love it, and I made this well ahead of time for my salad. I also knew I was going to be using it and some of the bacon grease in my green bean casserole for actual Thanksgiving. I didn't film that and show it in my What's for Dinner, but we took green bean casserole and mashed potatoes and some cheese dip and Chex Mix to my in-laws for Thanksgiving. But I had leftover chicken from Thanksgiving here. We made a salad out of it. I had the bacon that I used for the green bean casserole and some of it for our salads. And then we are making just cheese and crackers. It was a real simple dinner. We did this after our Thanksgiving festivities because I knew I would want something light. something easy. I chopped an onion, chopped the bacon, we had croutons, the leftover chicken, pumpkin and sunflower seeds, cheese, and then the cheese and crackers. It was a really simple dinner. Everyone could build what they wanted, and I didn't have to work too hard in the kitchen because by this point and after the Thanksgiving preparations, I was pooped and ready to not spend any time in the kitchen. My kids are even lucky that we ate. Let's just leave it at that. But salad was actually a really easy option for after Thanksgiving. And what's easier than salad, you ask? Hungry Howie's Takeout Pizza. I have no regrets. I loved every bite of this, and I didn't cook. So this was my What's for Dinner. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you come back next week for another What's for Dinner.